Hi, this is Riddle and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be covering the easiest and most effective way to reuse things and guarantee that your seeds are going to not only germinate correctly, but they're going to be strong, viable little plants that will make it into your garden and onto your table. Grab a pen and paper because there's a lot of fine details. I will try to list them, but I'm more of a oralist, meaning I talk better than I write. It's part of my Native American heritage. So, what I want you to find or save, if you ever buy lettuce at the store or berries, you get these plastic containers, and you can go through a lot of these in a year, and it's a shame. It's a lot of waste. So this one is the best one because it's so deep. What we want to do is take this container and you're going to put holes in the bottoms of it. The more the better, because you can use a nail, you can use a pair of scissors, and just you want to fill the bottom of your plastic container with a lot of holes so you can have some drainage, because once your seedlings get large enough, you may be watering them directly in this container, buying you time before you can get them planted in a pot or in the garden. Okay, so we have our container that came from a spring mixed lettuce. You can also use berry containers. Next step, very important, and many people don't do this. You want to sterilize this container and any of your materials before you do seedlings. If you don't, they might be fine, but you also may be inviting molds and other contaminants that could possibly destroy your seedlings, especially if you live in a cooler, darker climate and you're trying to get your things started early indoors. You can use bleach water. You can also use vinegar, because vinegar has the same antibacterial properties as bleach does, and it's a lot less toxic, and it's very inexpensive. Plain old white vinegar. So sterilize your containers really well. Now we're going to get to the point of the soil. The best mix for seedling soil is a combination of fine grain sphagnum peat moss, because it's high in acidity, and that acidity helps to fight off bugs. I don't mean literally bugs, I mean different bacterias and molds and what have you. And perlite or vermiculite. This will make a very light soil, which will also hold moisture. You can see it's a beautiful texture, and those seed mixes you buy are just a big ripoff. Make it yourself. It's 2 or 3 things: sphagnum, perlite, and or vermiculite. Next, a lot of people don't know that you should pre-moisten your soil before you sow your seeds in it. Before you put this in your cell packs or your containers, this should be pre-moistened, because once it's in those little tiny holes or in a small container and you're trying to pour water in there, you have a huge chance of displacing seeds or not watering correctly. You can't see how much of the water has actually permeated the soil. You could have air pockets, and this could keep your seeds from germinating. Now, the trick is to water, but not overwater. Less is more, because you can always add more water, but you can't take it out. Give it a second to absorb and, mix it together really well. And what we want here is we don't want wet soil. We want it to clump like this. You want it like a nice clumping, not too wet, not too dry. And that's about the consistency that we want for our seed mix soil. All right, so once you get your soil hydrated, and that was not an example of how much water to use for a container like this, I'm just getting through this quickly for you. So we've got our good soil going. Another trick, you can put hydrogen peroxide and a little bit, meaning maybe a half a teaspoon per gallon of Epsom salt, into this watering mix, and that will act like an antibacterial agent. It helps with the mold, and it also helps to oxygenate and stimulate the seedlings. So I would say like 3 to 5 tablespoons of plain old hydrogen peroxide that you have in the house per gallon of water, and again about a half a teaspoon of Epsom salt. And I'm going to change that. I'm going to say that ratio to a half a gallon of water. Yeah, half a gallon of water. So now we have our sterilized seed container. We have our soil. The next big mistake that people make is they make the soil too deep. The deeper the soil, the wetter it's going to be. The deeper the soil, the harder it is to regulate how moist it's going to be. Seedlings actually germinate through warmth, not through light, and they don't need a lot of soil to germinate. Because if you think about it, in nature, seedlings germinate by just falling on the top of the soil and then some leaves falling on top of them, and that's it. So don't plant your seeds too deep, and there's going to be two benefits to this, and I'm going to show you. So we're going to put literally about an inch and a half of soil in the bottom of our container. See how it's clumping really nicely? Beautiful soil. And then you're going to pack it down firmly, but not, not obnoxiously firm. So we've got an 1.5 to 2 inches of soil in the bottom of our container. Now you're going to see why I use these old discarded berry and lettuce containers. I'm going to bring it back up to our table. First of all, you can write directly onto the container with a Sharpie. So you can do rows